On March 31st, 2006, a 27-year-old medical student walked into a crowded bar in Columbus, Ohio. Security cameras captured him entering the building just before 2 a.m. At the time, the area around Ohio State University was filled with students enjoying the nightlife. Bars and restaurants stayed busy late into the night, especially on weekends when students celebrated the end of another week of classes. The Ugly Tuna Saloon was one of the most popular spots in the South Campus Gateway complex, attracting hundreds of people every night. But what happened next would leave investigators baffled for years, because despite cameras watching the entrance, despite hundreds of people inside the bar, despite an intense police investigation, Brian Shaffer was never seen leaving. It's as if he simply vanished into thin air. Tonight, we examine one of the most chilling and baffling missing person cases in modern true crime: the disappearance of Brian Shaffer. Welcome to True Crime Case Files TV, where we explore real crimes, dark mysteries, and the unanswered questions that still haunt investigators today. If you enjoy deep true crime stories, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, because some mysteries refuse to stay buried. Before he became the center of one of America's strangest mysteries, Brian Shaffer was simply a young man with a bright future. Friends often described Brian as someone who balanced intelligence with a relaxed personality. He was the type of person who could focus seriously on his studies, but still enjoy spending time with friends. People who knew him said he had a calm and thoughtful nature, and he rarely seemed involved in conflict. Brian was born in 1979 and grew up in Pickerington, Ohio. Pickerington was a quiet suburban community not far from Columbus. It was the kind of place where many families knew each other and where children often grew up surrounded by familiar faces and long-time friendships. Friends described him as intelligent, funny, and easygoing. He loved music, playing guitar, and spending time with friends. Music was one of Brian's favorite ways to relax. Some of his friends recalled that he enjoyed playing guitar and listening to different types of music during his free time. But Brian also had serious ambitions. At the time of his disappearance, he was studying at the Ohio State University College of Medicine. Medical school required long hours of study and dedication. And students often spent late nights reviewing textbooks, preparing for exams, and working toward the demanding goal of becoming a doctor. Becoming a doctor had been his lifelong dream. However, Brian's life had recently been shaken by tragedy. Just weeks before he disappeared, Brian's mother had died unexpectedly from cancer. The loss had a deep impact on Brian and his family. Losing a parent is always difficult, and for Brian, the grief came during an already stressful time in medical school. The loss devastated him. Friends said he was struggling emotionally but trying to stay strong. To clear his mind after finishing final exams, Brian decided to go out with friends for a night of celebration. It would be the last time anyone would see him. On the evening of March 31st, 2006, Brian went out with his friend William Clint Florence. But the two started their night at a local restaurant called the Ugly Tuna Saloon, a popular bar located in Columbus's South Campus Gateway complex. Later, they were joined by Brian's friend Meredith Reed. The atmosphere was lively, music was loud. Students filled the bar celebrating the end of the school week. The bar was crowded, with groups of students talking, laughing, and moving between tables and the dance floor. In places like this, it would be easy for someone to blend into the crowd. Security cameras inside the complex captured Brian entering the bar around 1:55 a.m. At the time, no one could have imagined how important those security cameras would later become. What seemed like a normal moment would eventually turn into the last confirmed image of Brian Shaffer. He was wearing a green shirt and jeans. The footage clearly showed him talking with two women outside the entrance before stepping inside. This would become the last confirmed sighting of Brian Shaffer. As the night continued, Brian's friends eventually left the bar, but Brian stayed behind. When closing time came around 2 a.m., Clint and Meredith tried calling him. They assumed Brian had simply gone home with someone. But when Brian failed to answer his phone the next day, concern began to grow. When Brian failed to show up for a planned flight to Miami just days later, his father became alarmed. Brian would never miss something like that. Police were contacted. Soon, investigators began reviewing surveillance footage from the bar. Detectives carefully analyzed the footage frame by frame, attempting to follow Brian's movements throughout the night. And their goal was simple: determine when he left the building. What they discovered would become the heart of the mystery. The cameras clearly showed Brian entering the bar, but after hours of reviewing footage, police never found a single clip of him leaving. The ugly Tuna Saloona had one main entrance and exit. Security cameras monitored it continuously. Everyone else who entered the bar that night was eventually seen leaving, except Brian. For investigators, this detail made the case even more puzzling. In most missing person cases, there is at least some clue pointing to what happened next. It appeared as though he had vanished inside the building. Investigators searched the entire area. Officers spent hours examining the surrounding streets and nearby buildings. They checked dumpsters, stairwells, rooftops, and any location where someone might have accidentally fallen or been injured. They checked nearby dumpsters, rooftops, construction sites, and alleyways. Nothing. No body. No evidence of foul play. No clues. Brian Shaffer had simply disappeared. As the investigation stalled, several theories began to circulate. Over time, investigators and members of the public began offering different explanations for what might have happened. One theory suggested Brian may have slipped out through a construction exit. At the time, parts of the building were under renovation. It's possible he left through an area not covered by cameras. However, investigators examined that possibility closely. Construction workers were interviewed. No one reported seeing Brian leave through that area. Another theory involved foul play. Some investigators wondered if Brian might have been attacked inside the bar or nearby. But again, there was no evidence to support this. No witnesses reported a fight. No blood or signs of violence were ever discovered. Then there was an even stranger possibility. Some believed Brian may have intentionally disappeared. According to friends, Brian had recently been under emotional stress due to his mother's death. Some speculated he might have chosen to start a new life somewhere else. But this theory also raises serious questions. Brian left behind his car, his money, his phone, his family, and everything he had worked for. If he planned to disappear, why leave everything behind? As the years passed, the mystery only deepened. In 2008, Brian's father, Randy Shaffer, died in a tragic accident during a storm. This left Brian's brother Derek as the last remaining member of the immediate family, still searching for answers. Police continued to follow leads, but none led anywhere. Even Brian's cell phone offered a bizarre clue. In missing person cases, cell phones can sometimes provide important information. Investigators often attempt to trace signals in order to determine a person's last known location. Months after he vanished, Brian's phone suddenly rang. It appeared to be an incoming call, but when investigators traced the signal, it led nowhere. It was likely a technical glitch. But for Brian's loved ones, it was a painful reminder that the mystery was far from solved. Nearly 2 decades later, Brian Shaffer's disappearance remains unsolved. Despite years of investigation and public interest in the case, no clear answer has ever emerged. No confirmed sightings, no suspects, no evidence explaining what happened that night. Investigators still revisit the case from time to time. But the question that has haunted them since 2006 remains unanswered. How can a man walk into a crowded bar and never walk out? The disappearance of Brian Shaffer remains one of the most puzzling missing person cases in American history. Was it a tragic accident, a carefully planned disappearance, or something far more sinister? We may never know, but somewhere out there, the truth still exists, and one day it may finally come to light. If you enjoyed this case, make sure to subscribe to True Crime Case Files TV for more real crime stories, unsolved mysteries, and chilling investigations. Because sometimes, the darkest secrets are the ones still waiting to be discovered.